So my name is Bose, and I just turned 50. To be honest, I think I was quite excited mainly because my brother died at 43. And so he never got to see 45. So for every birthday that I had after he couldn't make it, meant something to me. And so for me, I think 50 was quite significant. Also because I had a bit of a journey through it. Some places were dark places for me. And I always wanted to be happy when I got to 50. And so I was in that place where everything just came together for me. And so I was so excited about being 50 because it looks like it came with a lot of blessings. Ironically, I didn't have a 40th birthday celebration because I was not in a good place. And so, but my husband did a surprise for me and took me on a holiday somewhere. And so I think right now, I wish I had celebrated my 40th because I shouldn't have allowed the circumstances around me to dictate to me how I should celebrate, a milestone. And so I promised myself never to go back to that place where, I would not celebrate. So for me, for over the years, I think 40 came with a lot of maturity where I started to listen more and talk less and started to understand that certain energy were not good for me in terms of negative energy and started to cut off certain things around me. So I think between 40 and 50, there was a lot of journey, story, discovery along the line. So I think, for starters, I had my daughter when I was 36, right? And I wanted to have more kids. And I got pregnant. I was having miscarriages. And so, there's a talk about, your biological clock is ticking when you're hitting 40. So 40 was a bit of a mix where you felt, I didn't want to get there because there were still things I wanted to do before 40. And then that age meant, maybe having a child was kind of limited. But then I found out that even after I reached 40, I was still got pregnant. And maybe when I went to do some tests, we realized that my body wasn't as 40 or was acting like a 36 person. I mean, the elements that it picked. And so I started to realize that age is nothing but a number. And so it doesn't define that you're old. It's how you feel inside. So for me, for starters, even though I'm 10 years from when I was 40, I still feel very much the same, but just with a bit more maturity where, some things, I give an example. Before, if I had an argument with my husband, I'll be like on a fire. But now I don't even talk. It's like silence. And I think that comes with maturity. Probably before I was 40, that won't happen. I would want to prove my point and get to the end goal. But now I'm like, you know what? It doesn't matter who wins. And so I think that's the element of maturity coming in. And then one thing that nobody tells you is you hit 40 and your eyesight is compromised. I didn't understand it until I started, because I had 20/20 vision before then. And then I'm trying to read something and it's like, I can't say, I'm like, hell, what's going on here? So I think those are the elements of 40. And I've noticed it in a lot of people, not just me, even my friends. So I think that's one of the things to watch out for. So I think in that decade, I didn't think I would be. So I've recently just been picked as a cohort closed group for a leadership program. And amongst the people that was picked, there were 21 people. And I'm the only person who is amongst them who does not line manage anybody. You have people having 100 people under them that they're overseeing the area. So that was something I didn't see coming because when it came, I didn't expect it. I was approached to do a recording for my company. All happened between last year. So that happened just before 49 and then after 49. I didn't see that coming. And me moving to Dubai, I never saw that coming. So it's like 3 major things that happened that I didn't see coming. And so for me, it's like a nice way to go on into 50 because it's just at the beginning and there's still more to come and I'm so excited. And so I think the traveling I've done, I love to travel. So I think God took that element of my passion and added it into my job. And I think that's amazing. I think it was always my values. So there's something about, you stay close to what your values are. And one of my values is my faith and integrity. I hold that very, very, very personal. So I want people to be honest. And I think whenever I did what I did or whatever job I found doing, even if I felt it was demeaning when I was doing it, my line manager said, do something that I felt it was admin. Because I was asked to do it, I did it to the best of my ability. And I think for me, the person who sponsored me to the leadership program, I've never met the person. I don't know the person personally. So I don't know how my name came into light to him. So for me, it's just being true to myself. And I think even when I go into a shop and I pick an item and I walk out forgetting to pay, I go back and pay. Because I always say that it could be a test from God. And so I don't take it like, oh, they blessed me. No, they didn't bless me. That's stealing. So I'd go back and do the proper thing. And so for me, integrity is very, very key. I hold it quite dear. And so if I meet people who I feel like they're very deceptive, I kind of move away from them. And so I am very routine person. So I kind of like stick to what I know. And sometimes it can be good, sometimes it can be bad. Because sometimes it's like I want to control everything. And so sometimes I'm learning to kind of give room to changes that is beyond my control and just accepting it as it is. So for me, my brother used to say, life is not a bed of roses. And I didn't, when he told me that, I think in secondary school, and I didn't understand what it meant. But my journey getting into university in Nigeria is quite a tricky one where I'm very brilliant, I'm very smart, but somehow, as I was doing my GCSEs, it was difficult because I would have this paper and I wouldn't have that paper. And so I had to do 3 lots of that. And then I got into uni through what you call like a foundation course. And then along the line, I had an issue where I had to leave. And so that was a struggle because it was as if there was just something just not allowing me to progress. But then I got here, started all over again, and I excelled. Finished with a 2-1, and I was like, yes, I'm in my element. Got a job, and even when I had a job I had a job at a college as in the admission office. And so for me, I like to use my brain. So even though I was doing admin because students would come, we had the busy period, we had the dumb down period. I would always be applying for jobs and I would get rejection letters. And one thing was I wasn't ready to falsify my CV to make up what I hadn't done. And maybe that meant I couldn't get the job I needed to get because I wasn't ready to, like they say, do up the CV. And so for me, it was important to stay true to who I was. And so I went back to uni to do my master's program because I felt I was adding to myself. So that gave me the fulfillment of, okay, you're not wasting your time. And so for me, I stayed true to that. When I worked, so for instance, if I couldn't do something because I went out and I spent, say, my lunchtime is 1 hour and I've spent an hour, 20 or 30 minutes, then I stay back an extra hour because I feel like God is watching. So it doesn't matter who's looking at me. It's what I do behind closed doors that no one watches that I feel is important. And so for me, it was always vital. And sometimes people thought this girl is crazy. But I think I always felt like, I didn't want one thing to stop me. I've done so many good things and I'll let this one thing mess up every good thing I've done. So for me, it was that element of, I think, my integrity is like, I want to be able to say people can vouch for me. And I think if I start to bend corners, I felt life gets tough. But I always pray for the grace to be able to maneuver those turns and, not to look for the easy way, but to look for the difficult way. And I'll give an example. When I had my daughter, I was 36 and I wanted to go back to work and I couldn't find a job. And I did everything, certification, Prince 2, ITIL. People were doing testing and they were earning £100 a day or whatever. And I said, I can't because I found it monotonous, like just doing the same thing. It wasn't about the money. For me, it was about doing the right thing. I had a job, a contract, just before I had Zura, I had a job in NHS. And I would go there and I wouldn't be doing much. And then I just hated it. And so when my husband lost his father, they wanted to extend my contract. And then I was so bothered because I was like, we need the finances because he was the only one working. But then I wasn't happy doing the thing. And I was so depressed. And so at 4 a.m., I messaged the project manager that, unfortunately, I'm not going to be taking the extension. And then he came back and said, do you have something you're going to? I said, no. And so he must have thought it was crazy. There were jobs that were going, and it was like, why are you not applying for the job? I'm like, because I don't want to work here. And so that's me staying true to who I am and not trying to say, because I have to earn the money. And even when I said, like I said, for 7 years, I was looking for the job. I would apply, and eventually somebody gave me an opportunity, and then the rest is history. So I could have done so many things. If it was about money, I could have done the thing by sticking and just going to work, but that's not me. And so that's where my integrity comes into play. So I think between this 10 years this has to do with my mental illness. And then I think in those 10 years, I must have had like 3 or 4 episodes of me going into a closet, and some was 2 years, another was 3 years. I think the last, just before me getting into 49, was 3 years. And I think one of the things I did before then was when I came out of the last one, because one thing I think I always remembered was I can't get that time back that I have lost. So I always used to say to myself, I will never let myself go down that route. But unfortunately, some of these things are beyond your control. And I think the last episode I had, before then, when I was in my happy place, I took lots of pictures every day because I wanted to remember each day. And I think when I went through those 3 years, one of the things that kept me going was looking at those pictures. Of course, the fact that I was a Christian, looking at those pictures and telling myself that, you know what, I was once happy like this. And so I would say, you can do this. And this is why I say, if it was about your willingness, I think I would have been better instantly. But it wasn't shifting. And it took me moving house. I don't know why. But of course, later on, I got to know that when you're in an environment where you have a lot of bad memories, moving out of that space gives you it's like you've left all of that memories behind, and it's like you've moved on to something new. And I moved to this house and I just got better. And I went a step further by making sure I got a therapist who I could speak to get to the bottom of some of the roots. And I think just that process alone helped me to understand my triggers, helped me to take care of myself better. I was just saying to my sister earlier on that I went for a massage. I try to make that once every 2 weeks because I think it's quite important. So for me, those were the things that was quite challenging. But I think it's been 1 year and I've not been back in that space because I've looked after myself. I've made sure that, and I still take pictures every day when I can. I mean, my memory is full, but when I can, I do. Because I think it's important to remember how yesterday was. If today is not going well, then you hold on to those happy memories. I think my father is, we're all a product of our environment. And I think my brother, my sister, I think we're very routine. I don't know to use the word routine. So I do certain things in a certain way and I don't deviate from it. And when I do anything, either be work or I'm doing something, I plan ahead. And because I work that way, I'm very intentional because I know that if I want to get something done, I need to do certain things. And I think when it came to my well-being, I knew that in order for me to heal fully, wholly, I needed to do something additional. It wasn't all about me because there's the element of what me as a person can do. There's the element of what the external forces that you need to help you to get to that place. And I was willing to invest. And I think acceptance, by accepting that I needed help. And then second is by taking it a step further, by getting that help. Because there's no help pointing, identifying that you need help and you're not doing anything about it. And it was also writing. So when I was being sort of saying a consultant, I found out that when I write, it uplifts what's on my mind. And I found it quite therapeutic because whatever I'm thinking on my mind, once I put it down on the paper, it's easy for me to sleep. So I think that's where my intentionality comes from, about doing something because I want a different result rather than just sitting there, because if I sit there, nothing is going to happen. So I knew that. And when I think about my daughter, about my husband, he's been through a lot of good moments and then it's like I'm back there. And so I thought, you know what? I have to be unselfish and think about the others around me. And so I was intentional about that. So I think the last episode I had was obviously not as bad as the previous ones, because in the previous ones, I would literally not go anywhere. In this case, I was still going to certain places because certain people didn't affect me. Like, so I'll give you an instance. Sometimes in the previous one, I don't want to talk to certain people. They haven't done anything to me, but I'm angry with them. In this episode, I was still going to like a few, maybe house things, and maybe I felt comfortable with them, I'll go. For certain people, I don't want to go. So my sister had a barbecue. I didn't want to see some people in the family, so I didn't go. And I think what was different about the recovery was that I made sure that I ate. Because in the past, I don't have appetite. And I knew that I'd lost a lot of weight, had a lot of breakouts on my face. So I was quite intentional about not looking like that, because then I looked quite sick. And so I would try, but there was still that element of sadness I couldn't shift. And so what I started to do was listen to Christian music, songs that would uplift me, just so that I'm not in that element. But one thing I found out was holidays were always, I think it was because I was looking forward to a different environment. And once I was in that environment, I was happy. The minute I come back into the same environment, I'm back to square one. And so I started to see a pattern. And I think it was understanding what worked and what didn't work. And I think for me, I realized that sometimes if you don't look after you, you have no use to the next person. So for instance, I always use that element of when you're in the plane and they say if the oxygen masks drop, put yours on first before you help the kids. Because if you help the kids, in the process you could pass out and they will pass out and both of you would die. So in the same instance, I use that as for myself. If I don't look after myself, I can't look after the people around me. So in as much as people think, oh, it's selfish because you're talking about yourself, you matter because you have to love you. If you don't love you, you can't love others. I think it has changed me because I realized certain things about me. So I'll give you an example. I dream, not a lot, but I think God talks to me through my dreams. And I don't think I ever identified it up until maybe in the last few months. So it was something that happened, but I didn't count it quite significant. And so for me, in the last 10 years, I've realized some skills, some things I have as a person that is of value. And I think because of the way my brain works quite quick. Like my thoughts are like crazy. Like the way I remember numbers, I sometimes think it's I can't believe it. I don't know how. But I'm the kind of person that I know the long number of my card, of my debit card, whatever card, that's me. So all I have to do is just use it once and it's in my brain. And I say to my friends, don't leave your cards around me because I look at it and I pick the numbers. And that's the kind of memory I have. And I think I started realizing that, you know what, I can use that to do something positive. Because, use it to do something that would benefit me. And I think I didn't realize that up until maybe like 5 years ago, where I just know that I remember things at the moment so graphically that and there's a good side and there's a bad side, because there's some things that are bad that I want to forget and I can't. And the good ones, of course, live with me. And so that's why I say there is always that element of what is positive and what is negative. But I think it's always taking the positive. And I think, like somebody said on Saturday, if you look around you, if you wanted to write everything bad that happened, you would have a full page. But at the same time, if you want to write something good that happened, you'd also, so why don't you concentrate on the good and then leave the bad? And I think that's what I've decided to do in the last maybe 3 years, is even though I've been through an episode, I can't recover that time back. But it's to make every day count from henceforth. Making sure I do me and do what I love. If I want to go on a holiday, I do it. So when I turned 50, I didn't want to have a party, like have a disco and all of that. I wanted to go on a destination and I wanted to go to Maldives. And as much as everybody was saying it's expensive, I'm like, it's not for everybody. So if you can be there, oh well and good. If it's only my family, I'm still going to do it. And so I started to learn, because I think over the years, you conform to what people want. And it's called conditioning. We're conditioned in a certain way because of our culture, because of where we come from. So we would not necessarily do things in a different way because people will say, oh, why are you doing that? And so we tend to conform to what people expect us to do, even though it's not what we want to do. And I think what I've learned in the last 2-3 years is that I no longer conform to what people expect. And if it means being different, I would rather be different. I would rather have 2 friends who are true to me than have 10 friends that think what I'm doing, they're happy with it. And if 8 people don't like it, I really don't mind. Because for me, it's about the value I get from each individual. Oh, Saturday. So this, like I said, the Maldives came from last year. Then I thought, oh, my birthday is on a Saturday. I didn't know I was going to be in Dubai. So I thought, oh, I like to have a Thanksgiving on a Sunday. And then it turned out like, of course, I had to travel. And then I thought, because of my settling in over there, I didn't want to put pressure on myself. So I decided to move it a week after. But I wanted a Thanksgiving that was different. And then the ideas started coming. And I thought, okay, I'll have a welcome drink so that people still have the element of engagement, mingling, talking. And then I'll have small chops. And then the service will happen. And every single thing that went into the service, it was what I wanted. It was how I wanted it. And for me, it was just about gratitude. It was about giving thanks to God. Every element of it, I wanted it to be about being thankful. And I think for me, the songs that I picked was the songs that got me through my journey. At every point in time that I found myself at that dark place, they were the songs that came through for me. And it was quite ironic on Saturday. The emailer song was when I think my dad died in 2015. And at that point, I was depressed. And when I went for the funeral, and I woke up on the day of his funeral, and I was listening to emailer, and I started to cry. And it was like I got released from whatever was holding me down. And so when they sang that song on Saturday, I got emotional because it took me back to that place. And it took me back to every point where I had struggled. And I was just so happy. I think on my birthday, I woke up. I was meant to fly from America to Dubai. I missed that flight. But normal Bose would be frustrated, angry. I wasn't, because I was so thankful that I was alive, that everything that didn't go right didn't matter. And I made the most of that day. And and every day after then has been a blessing. And then Saturday was just beautiful because I saw people I hadn't seen in a long time. One of my friends came from Nigeria. Some came from Aberdeen. For me, it just showed me how much people cared about me. And they could have been doing other things on their Saturday. And the service was amazing. I mean, the number of text messages that we have gotten about, they've never been to anything like that. It was different. I was glad that I sowed a seed on my 50th birthday, because that was what I had prayed to God, that a part of me stays with each person. And I think I was able to achieve that. Not because I'm me, but I think it was just God's grace. I think over the years I've learned that. So I was supposed to talk on Saturday, but because we started late and we overran, we took it out. But I think I always say to people, so you see me all made up, all smiling. It's not always been like this. And so I say I wear a lot of scars on my sleeves that you can't see. And I always believe that, at first I used to say, why me? And that was the question, why me? I asked God that question. And then after that, I started saying, why not me? Because we don't choose the paths we go through in life. There's a reason why we go through a path so that we can help others come through their own path. And so if me going through this means I can make the difference to two people, then it's okay, because nobody's path is ever easy. We all have a journey in life. And whatever journey I have been through was because it was meant to be, because there are people who didn't even make it to today. And so what would I say about those people? But I'm here today because I still hope for tomorrow. And so for me, it was a struggle, but I think God took me through because he knew that I would come out stronger. But at the beginning, it looks like I couldn't. And so would I change it? Would I have it easy? No, I'd rather go through it and let the path be good from henceforth, rather than have it good and then it's bad at the end, like really bad. So for me, I believe that, that is that what that says, that I will never put you through more than you can bear. At the time when I was going through it, I'm not going to lie to you, it felt like this was it. I would pray that I sleep and not wake up. But after that, I actually went back to say sorry, because I thought you were just being selfish. God was just building you up more for something bigger. And I think I said this to somebody. With God, you have to get in the car and trust that he's going to get you to the destination. You don't necessarily know that destination. But as human beings, we want to know where we're going. And that's where the doubt comes in. Because if somebody said, get in my car, we're going somewhere, I'll be like, where? If they don't tell me, I'm not getting in that car. But with God, that's what God expects us to do. Just to trust him that he's going to get us to that place where it's all going to be good for us. But I think we want to know, because I'll tell you what, every time I've worried about something, it's like God has it sorted. And then when it happens and he says to me, but I told you, and I'm like, I'm sorry. Because there's that human element where you just don't trust. You still want to do it in your own element. And so for me, the scars I wear is what makes me me. That's my story. And it's different from the next person. And I don't think I would have it either any other way. So the pain, I think the reward definitely outweighs the pain. And when I say it outweighs the pain, because I think we always feel that we have to do something to deserve something. And where I am right now, it's not because I worked to get it. It's because God felt I deserved it, irrespective of. And when I got it, I was so questioning the fact that I got it, because I felt I needed to have done maybe something like do the work of 10 over 10 to get it. But it was like God was saying, I bless you irrespective of whether you deserve it or not. And I'm learning to understand that you don't have to work to get something from God. He blesses you irrespective of whether or not you work for it. And it's about the work and faith and all of that. So I think I'm learning to understand that you don't, because I think we feel like we need to work to deserve something. It's just like our kids. Like you give them a reward when they've done hard work. But sometimes God rewards us because he knows the kind of person we are. And so for me, I think I'm trying to enjoy the moment for once. I'm trying not to think about, I don't deserve it. I think if God has decided to bless me this way, I'm embracing it. And I think there were lots of things that happened in America that it was just meant to be. And I connected with people that I would never have met if not because of the program. And so for me, I think all I needed to do was to trust God, because I was on a journey and I didn't know that at the end, because I think if we all had a picture of what the end looks like, we would be relaxed. But because it's that doubt factor that comes in, we're not sure whether it's going to be good. And so, it's getting into this house, so many things that have happened, it's a blessing. And it all came, I think, like bang, bang, bang. And I'm like, I didn't even have space to think before the next one came. And so that's how God works. He says at the appointed time, he makes it all beautiful. And I think that's what he did. But I think he couldn't have come at a better time than when I turned 50. I think the support system I was most grateful for was my family. My family were very intentional. So I had a friend who, when I was going through my last episode, set up a WhatsApp group with my sister, my husband, my cousins, trying to look for ways to help me out of it. And I think that was quite intentional. I didn't know about it until I got better. And for me, that was really quite touching because, a lot of people don't really, well, they're like, well, too bad, tough. But that wasn't the situation. And I think my husband, he didn't know how to help me. And so sometimes he was frustrated, But I think his intentions were good. He meant well. And so he took up having to cook because once I'm ill, I can't really cook. I don't eat. And so there was that burden on him as well. And he's only human. And there's only so much it can take. But I don't think if he didn't love me, I don't think he would have stuck around. I think he would have just done an exit plan. So for me, I think it was my friends, my family, my cousins who were hopeful, who were praying, who were stepping in, who were sending me links of songs that felt like could minister to me. It was the fact that they were thinking about me. Those who bought me a book about a woman that had been through depression, and when I came out of it, I did say thank you to them because they wanted me to be better. And I think knowing that they wanted me to be better gave me that hope. People did things like it was my birthday. They got a treat box sent to me. Even if I didn't feel like eating it, the thought that they were thinking of me kind of brought a smile to my face. And for those people, they sowed a seed because they were there for me when it really mattered. And for me, I think that was it. I think my highlights were, my holidays. Because I remember when I went to see a consultant when I was having an issue with them, my line manager. It was amazing how I discovered that he asked me to close my eyes, and he told me to think about my happy places, the holidays I've been on, and when I did that, he told me to push like his hand, and there was so much strength in it. And when he called the line manager name, and he told me to push, I was weak, and I suddenly realized the negative vibes and the positive vibes, what it does to you, how the positive vibes and energizes you, and how the negative vibes takes from you. And for me, I started to understand I needed to surround myself with positive energy. And so I think those were the things I've taken. And moving forward, I'm making sure that whoever surrounds me, I get positive energy. So for instance, on Saturday, the people I wanted to be in that room were people who had positively impacted me. I didn't want to look around the room and get angry at somebody that had done something wrong. So I was very intentional about who I had in that room on Saturday. It was very important for me. And so I think I've learned over the 10 years the things, even diet-wise, I cut off junk food because I found out that it had an effect on my well-being. And so I've been more intentional. I'm not one of those people that would say, oh, I don't do diets. I'm not on a diet per se, but I'm mindful of what I eat. And so because I realized that nutrition is part of what affects your well-being. And so I've taken that on board, and so I make sure I rest. I don't exercise, I walk, I try, but, and then I dance. That's my form of exercise. And then, I make sure I get a massage. I go to the spa hotel and have a chill day. And if somebody annoys me, I book myself into a hotel for the night because I need to get away from the negative vibes. So those are the things I've done that I think that has helped. And I've taken over the 10 years. So what I would say is enjoy it, embrace it, and make the most of it because The time that is lost can never be gained back. So don't have regrets, rather have memories that you have made because you were intentional about making the most of it. Even if you're not married, even if you've not had a child, be positive because you don't even know what's looking around the corner. And if you have been sad all the way through and then that thing comes true, it's just been sadness. But if you've been happy all the way through, then it just adds to your joy. So I'd say embrace it, enjoy it. And 40 is the new 20. I think a gift to myself would be that my loved ones are still very much around. I pray for good health for them. I pray for good health for myself so that I can enjoy being 80. I don't want to be 80 and be in pain. And I will hope that when I'm 80, I can still travel the world. That's the gift I would love to give to myself. I think what I want to remember is the gratitude, the joy that I feel. And I want to make the difference. Life is not about just yourself. It's about impacting the next generation. And for me, I want to remember that I have done my bit. I have helped somebody to climb that ladder. And if I can help more, I will do the same. So that when I look back, I can see a legacy that I have left. I want to remember that I was grateful for the milestone, for the things that have come with my 50th, not to take it for granted and to enjoy it. So that looking back, then I know that I embraced it. Thanks for having me. And I hope that, somebody is blessed with it.